is going on, guys? Matt Downs with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports to help give you the edge for this MLB 6-game Friday DraftKings slate. Cannot wait to break it down. If you guys are brand new to this channel, we provide both free and paid content for all daily fantasy sports across all sports. If you could please show your support by hitting that subscribe button, notification bell, and of course smashing that like button for all of our future MLB content. If you would like to know more about becoming a better DFS player and taking down that big GPP, head over to www.patreon.com/DGFantasy for more information. On Patreon, we give advanced cheat sheets for all DFS sports on DraftKings. These cheat sheets include updated projections, ownership, and our overall favorite plays from slate to slate. We take it a step further by teaching you how to play fantasy sports like a shark, by showing you where the best leverage spots are to put you in the best spots to take down tourneys. Also included is our private Discord chat where you get to talk over the slate with everyone, including our coaches, to help build your lineups. And now let's go ahead and dive right into this MLB 6-game slate, guys. Cannot wait to break it down. But first, again, we want to talk about Patreon success. We want to talk about strategy and how to approach MLB, because MLB is all about stacking. For you guys who have been followers of Daily Grind Fantasy for a while, you know this. But for all you new guys out there, stacking for MLB, and stacking a contrarian stack can get you a takedown, just like this one in front of me here, $33 into 250. I also post my favorite leverage stacks every single slate on Patreon. Again, that's only $20 a month, and it gives you a list of good leverage stacks depending on the type of contest, as well as ownerships, cash plays, and everything. So that's all included in there, and plus we have our Discord community where we're always talking about strategy. We go live before lock before every NBA slate, MLB. We have plenty of content for League of Legends, CSGO, Call of Duty. I'm reading down the tabs here that we cover. MMA, everything in between, and of course when NFL starts back up. But that being said, let's go ahead and talk about this slate. This slate, again, does not have Coors Field on the slate, which means we don't have to avoid heavy chalk. It looks like it's going to be spread around. We don't have ownership projections as of right now, but we will have those on Patreon. Let's talk about my favorite pitchers here on the slate. The obvious choices are going to be Zach Plesac here at $9,600 and a very low over-under. Right now, they're only projected to score 3.54 points against Cleveland. I'm talking about Detroit. You're going to want to target low run totals. And another one that doesn't really make sense here is Joe Musgrove against Texas. It is a hitter-friendly ballpark, but right now, 3.89 projected run total. So I think you can grab him at a discount. And obviously, Charlie Morton, a huge strikeout monster. So I do like the value there at $7,900. 3.75 over-under against Seminen. Lance McCullers is going to be another obvious one here against Oakland and a pitcher-friendly ballpark. So love those guys. For upside, I think those guys are going to be the most obvious options. If you want a salary save, it's going to be Charlie Morton, but I think Zach Plesac is going to be the most obvious choice there at $9,600, which really isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. Line of construction is going to be very straightforward, because when we talk about hitters, I want to talk about a couple teams. Let's actually go through the entire slate. Angels at Toronto. Toronto, I think, is going to be a little bit more on the chalk side just because they're going to be very cheap, and the Angels are actually relatively cheap too. So we know Tani's out of that lineup in the second spot, so somebody's going to have to replace him. Whoever that will probably be very cheap and affordable, so definitely something to consider there. But we do have run totals here for Detroit versus Cleveland, as we talked about, a 8.5 over under. If you're going to be targeting anybody for cash, it's going to be on the Cleveland side there, projected to put up a decent amount of runs there. Philly versus Atlanta. Atlanta right now, this is an 8 over under. Really not too much to target there in terms of cash contests, but bigger GPPs. I think Philly and Atlanta, you can definitely get some exposure there if you think it's going to go one way or the other. Definitely a hit or miss type of game there, especially on the Atlanta side. And then with San Diego at Texas, I do like targeting San Diego. They're in a very hitter-friendly ballpark. The over-under is 9. And let me just check to see how many runs they are projected to score, because I think that's a pretty significant amount. Yeah, 5.11 over-under. I think that's the highest on the entire slate. They're giving, or Vegas is giving them, a 62.3% chance to win. I think that makes sense. And then here over on the Texas side, definitely a leverage spot, 3.89. Like I said, Musgrove is going to carry low ownership. So are the Texas batters. So the discrepancy there with the ownership being so low, their price tags are very easy to get to. I think they make for an intriguing stack. I think Joey Gallo is going to be the only decently high-owned guy there, just because he did get a price decrease here at $3,800. Going down to Oakland. Oakland's not going to carry any ownership whatsoever. They never do. They're on the later part of the slate. A 3.85 over under. All these guys are relatively easy to go to, so I think this is going to make for a very intriguing stack. And then obviously with Houston, Houston is a great hitting team. We know that a 5.15, so I stand corrected, they are the highest over under, but they are also very expensive. So I think a couple of these guys will carry some ownership, but for the majority here, definitely a good stack to target for cash. And then last but not least, this is going to be my favorite value team to target on the slate. As you guys can see, a 4.78 over under, which isn't bad at all. They have some good matchups here, which we will get to here on Plate IQ. And all these price tags are very easy to get to. Joey Votto, Mike Moustauskas, Winker, all these guys. Look at these price tags up and down. And then Senzel, if he's really batting right now, he's projected to be in the 1 spot, a 2.9k price tag, so he's going to be mega chalk if he does bat in the 1 spot, and a 4.78 over under. And then flipping over to the other side, Arizona, not that great. The price tags are coming down on these guys after they just got done batting in Coors Park. A 4.4k price tag on Christian Walker, Roa's 4.2, and going down the line, they just don't make sense there with a 4.22 over under, but I would target these guys in bigger GPPs. Now, liking to talk about the matchups here, we have a very good matchup like I talked about with the Angels versus Toronto. Zuch, I think is his name. I don't know if I pronounced that wrong. You guys can roast me in the comments. That's fine. I take full responsibility for that. But you want to target lefties against this guy. Gives up a 469 weighted on-base average versus opposing lefties and a 143 ISO. So I do like him. Again, only a very small, if you guys look here, small plate appearance, sample size 17 and 45 against opposing righties. So not too much to go off of, but we know there's a lot of power hitters here from the Angels lineup. Whoever's going to slide into the spot at the second spot, looks like they're going to be trying to get lefties into this lineup if I do predict correctly, because this is a right-handed pitcher. But Trout, Fletcher, whoever's going to be subbing in for Ohtani, Rendon, and then Walsh is one of my favorite options here. A 487 ISO and a 456 weighted on-base average. I think these guys are going to be relatively on the chalkier side, but if they don't carry any ownership whatsoever, love them to target in general for medium to big GPPs. Going over to Henny, Henny does give up a decent amount of power versus righties, a 210 ISO. And he is a lefty, so that makes sense. Semien here in a great spot, a smash spot actually, a 298 ISO and a 373 weighted on base average. Bichetti, not in the best spot, but we know based on what he's been doing, definitely a great person to target there. And also Hernandez, a 308 ISO and a 364 weighted on base average. And then going down the list, all these guys are green here. 1 through like 7 are in smash spots. So love Toronto here. Like I said, I think that they are going to be relatively on the chalky side. Very easy to get to. It's going to be them and Cincinnati for value bats. And I really do like targeting these guys here. Definitely going to carry some ownership if I have to predict correctly. Going down to Detroit versus Cleveland, like I said, for a majority, you're going to be avoiding this game. Looks like it's going to be a better matchup here for Cleveland. Looks like Jose Ramirez, a 270 ISO, 387 weighted on base average versus opposing righties. Makes sense because he's a switch hitter. And then Rosario also in a very good smash spot, a 287 ISO and a 364 weighted on base average. If the first couple guys can get it going here in the lineup, I think these guys could end up being a sneaky stack here for Cleveland. Like I said, I don't think they'll carry that much of ownership just because again, their over-under actually isn't that intriguing, but I do like them just to fly under the radar. Definitely going to be a great leverage stack here for Cleveland. Going to Detroit, definitely going to want to avoid here. Plesac does put up a lot of good numbers here just to first everybody. If you're going to be targeting anybody, it's going to be lefties. It makes sense because he's a righty. So all these guys are switch hitters. Could get it going here. Could hit that over. I think it was a 3.89 is what they're projected at right now. If they hit that over, well, then you look good for leverage, but I don't think they're going to be one of the highest scoring teams on the slate. But that being said, you can target them for bigger GPPs. Switching down the line here, we have Philly versus Atlanta. Another game I'm really not too intrigued in just because Charlie Morton is at the mound here. Gives up 345 weighted on base average here versus lefty. So if you're going to be targeting anybody, it's going to be Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper is actually in a fantastic spot. If there's going to be a bright spot in this lineup, it should be him. 257 ISO and a 400 weighted on base average on the dot there, but everybody else really not too intrigued. And again, only lets up a 287 weighted on base average and a 103 ISO versus righties. So a majority of this lineup is righties. Not intrigued there with the Philly batters. Switching over to Atlanta, you're going to see a lot of green just in general, but a lot of green here on Zach Wheeler. So it's going to be a hit or miss type of night here for both sides. Grab Zach Wheeler for low ownership, but grab the Atlanta batters for a low owned stack. Again, a lot of leverage potential on both sides of the ball here. I'm not going to lean one way or the other. If I had to, it would be on the pitching side. Actually, let me see which way the wind is blowing here. So it looks like the wind is blowing in from the outfield, an 8.9 mile per hour wind there. So if I'm going to be favoring anybody, it's going to be Zach Wheeler. The ballpark isn't that good for batters. I think it's a pretty average. So, if I had to make a call, it would be leaning towards the pitching side. And then switching down here, we're going to go over San Diego versus Texas. A lot of red here for Texas and a lot of green here for Musgrove. This is why I said he was underpriced. I think he's a very good value pitcher here. Gallo is going to be the only somewhat bright spot, and low, 364 ISO and a 409 weighted on base average here versus opposing righties. He is a lefty. Again, makes sense. So a lot of lefties here in this lineup, but not a majority of them here. Not too good. So I'm going to be favoring the pitcher here in this matchup here, going against Texas. And then for the San Diego side, the complete opposite. No plate appearances, really. 20 total here for this pitcher. I'm in a lot of green here. This is why this is going to be one of the chalkier stacks. Second highest over-under on the entire slate. Grisham, 213 ISO and a 339 weighted on base average. Machado, Hosmer, Myers, Cronenworth, like all these guys are just covered in green, which is fantastic. That's what we want to see in terms of stats. So definitely like this lineup, and I think these guys are going to be more on the chalkier side heading into the later part of the night. And then Oakland versus Houston. This is going to be night and day. I think Oakland's going to be very low owned. And if you guys can see here, Lance McCullers actually gives up a decent amount of power here versus righties. But again, he's a strikeout monster. So if you guys want to target Oakland, I don't hate that. Again, a lot of green here. But again, you're going to want to be targeting righties. It's going to be Kana, Olsen, Loreno. All these guys look pretty good for the most part. But the ballpark is not hitter friendly. And Lance McCullers, again, huge strikeout guy. I would target only these guys for bigger GPPs. And then switching over to the Houston side, a lot of green, a lot of red here for lefties. So targeting lefties, Brantley looks good. Tucker looks great. Alvarez looks fantastic. Altuve even looks good against opposing righties because he's just a stud. Bregman's a stud. So you can really target anybody in this lineup. I think these guys, again, going to be more on the chalkier side. But these guys are very expensive, so going to make for a very awkward build when trying to stack Houston. I think one-offs are going to look good here in cash. You're going to want to limit your exposure in cash just because of the price tag. It's not going to allow you to do too much here, especially given the ballpark. And then last but not least, it's going to be Cincinnati versus Arizona. Arizona, a lot of red. It's just not looking good here for Arizona. Only like them in bigger GPPs. And then last but not least, Cincinnati, one of my favorite value stacks on the entire slate. Lets up a lot of power versus lefties, and we've got a couple lefties here in the lineup. So a lot of green versus a lot of red. Righties, he does fare pretty well, but again, the over-under actually looks pretty juicy here. 4.88 is what I thought it was. Let me just double check, fact check myself. Going back to Cincinnati, it is a 4.78. So yeah, pretty juicy over under, especially for the price tags. All these guys are relatively cheap except for Nick here, heading in the 2 spot. 5.3K is the only expensive guy, but all these guys look really good for value. Going to be one of my favorite stacks in general, and just I do think it's going to carry a lot of ownership here heading into the last game of the slate. And that will end my video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. If you did, please do hit that subscription button, notification bell, and of course smash that like button for all of our future MLB content. With all that being said, have a great rest of your day, and let's cash.